Hi, I'm Delia Clark, and I'm a place-based education consultant working with the Iditarod Historic Trail Alliance in partnership with the Chugach National Forest, the BLM Campbell Creek Science Center, and the Anchorage Park Foundation. In normal years, we offer the Iditarod Trail to Every Classroom program, which we call iTrek, as an 11-day in-person teacher professional learning program spread across a year. iTrek encourages teachers to think about how they can connect to place, bring their students outside more, bring outside resources into the classroom, and how they can connect with the Iditarod Trail and the cultural and natural landscapes of Alaska. During the pandemic, we're offering some of the core elements of iTrek as a webinar series called Take It Outside to continue to serve Alaskan educators in ways that we hope are valuable to you. We hope that you are able to use the information you get today to encourage your students to get outside and learn more about the nature and culture of Alaska. We'll be offering this series throughout the school year, and we hope you're able to attend more sessions. If you're interested in receiving a flyer listing the full series, please contact us at itrekalaska@gmail.com. And I'll be presenting tonight part 3 of the questing series. I'm really excited to share this information with you. Um, so if I can ask you to please, in the chat, put your name and where you're from, that would be great. Let me see if I can make it so I can see this a little bit better. Um, Before we begin, if you can mute your audio when you're not speaking, that would be good. If you are speaking, turn your video on so we can see what you have to say. If you use the chat feature to ask questions or share ideas with the group, I'll try to notice that. And if you use the raise hand feature, if you have a question or you can't understand something I said, that'll help me to call on you because it'll raise you up to the top of the queue. We are recording this webinar for future use, and that's all. So let me keep moving. Today we're going to do a quick review of what questing is, because as I said, this is part 3 in the questing series. So if you've been part of this, or if you go back and look at the other recordings, you probably have a pretty good idea of what questing is. And I'm going to share with you 22 steps to building a great quest. I thought of making it like 3 or 7, but 22 is what it was. And so I decided just to go with that number. And then we're going to talk about how to pull it all together. Um, I'm going to assume that you know what a quest is. But for those of you who are here, I'm wondering if I can ask you to type into the chat if it's anything different from this, what you think a quest is. So obviously one idea is that it's a structured exploration of special places, sort of like a treasure hunt. And it allows you to explore nature and culture with a local guide. Um, but if anyone wants to offer any other definitions in chat, go for it. Um, the idea of a quest is that it's created by kids as a service to their community to get people out and exploring the wonders of a local place. Um, I've taken you in the last 2 sessions on quests that were all over Alaska, and right now I want to talk about how to do one. Yeah, I really agree. It is sort of like a scavenger hunt. Great interactive way to get moving and learn about a place. Thanks for that definition. So, 22 steps to building your quest. The first one is to really be clear about what your goals are. So you need to think about, why do I want to make a quest? Is it because I'm trying to help my students to learn map making? Or is it because I'm trying to help my students learn how to write in metered rhymed verse? Or is it because I'm trying to make my community more vital and build connections between different community members? Is it to try to build more ecotourism in my community and give people something to come and do, or raise awareness about historical preservation or that kind of thing? Um, all of these are reasons that you might want to make a quest. And I should say that for anybody who's here tonight or has signed up, I'll be able to send you this list, so you don't need to write it all down. I know one community where they decided to make questing one of the core parts of their tourism programs, and they actually went out and and advertise the tours. And I talked to one guy who came to this town on his honeymoon, and he and his wife went out and did like 3 or 4 quests over the course of the weekend. So for some reason that felt to them like the right thing to do on a honeymoon, and they said they had a blast. So, I think it can be a great way to raise awareness that way. It can so thinking about why do we want to create a quest is a really good place to start. Second thing is to build yourself a team. Think about who's going to be involved in different steps of making this quest. If your quest is about, for example, historical preservation, you're going to want to partner up with the Historical Society probably, or some kind of local historian. If your quest is about the Iditarod Trail, then you probably want to contact Jane Holmes or others who are experts in knowing what's going on with the Iditarod Trail and how it connects to the landscape in the place where you are. So, if you, one of the things that's worked really well in some communities is to create a team that involves 2 different grade levels. So, for example, I know one quest where the fifth graders were like quest experts, and they knew all about how to make maps and how to write clues and how to do all that kind of thing. And in this case, I'm thinking of, they partnered with the second graders who had had an artist in residence in their classroom who had taught them all about the history of local architecture. So those second graders knew all about mansard roofs and gable ends and all that kind of stuff, and they showed those things to the fifth graders who made a quest around the village of the different kinds of architecture. So it was a wonderful partnership in that way. I also really encourage you to think about parents. It's I know one teacher who at in September, October, the beginning of school, when he did the parent meetings, he said, "I want to let you know that the third week in April, we are going to be devoting the whole week. We're going to culminate everything we've done throughout the semester, throughout the year." He's a fourth grade teacher, in making a quest together. And so I want to let you know that because I'm going to need a lot of help, all hands on deck. So if you can start asking now to get time off that week in April, we're going to be having a clue writing team, a map making team, a research team, a box building team, and I'm going to need a lot of parents to help. And so throughout the school year, his kids learned about all the things. They learned about maps, they learned about writing, they did a lot of research, and so they were ready for that week. And it was, the parents felt ready too, and it was really successful. Um, Another important step in building your quest is to think about the story that you want to tell. Quests are more fun when they don't just sort of tell, blah blah, but they actually focus on something. So what is it you're wanting to get across? It might be that it's just an introduction to your community. Here's our town, here's our neighborhood, here are some special things about it, and you're just going to lead around that and wind from here to there. Or it might be a special destination quest. You're going to go to a historic building, or you're going to go to a waterfall and lead things along the way. Some quests have special routes, so they'll follow a historic route. There's several quests that actually follow pieces of the Iditarod Trail, and at least the part that's near where they are. So that's something you can do. Obviously, not the whole thing, but that can be a nice way to play up your connection with the Iditarod historic trail. You also could think about different ways of getting there. So there are bike quests. I know a quest that you can only do by canoe, and it goes from shoreline to island to shoreline, that kind of thing. Subway, depending on where you live, that's not so relevant for you guys probably. But so thinking about that, thinking about a story you might want to tell, think about cultural history, like telling about the people who've, indigenous residents who've, or natural history, like picking one animal like a moose and telling, you'd learn all about moose and moose habitat in this quest. Local heroes and heroines is a big one. Taking somebody like Harriet Tubman is one quest I know, and choosing where she ended up living in Upper New York State at the after her multiple trips to freedom, telling about her story, and that, or, something, depending on who's important where you are, think about telling their stories. Seasonal and ephemeral quests are really fun too. So, they're only up for a short time. I think I mentioned last time there's in a town near me, there's a quest called the Strolling of the Heifers quest because once a year all the dairy farmers bring their heifers and they stroll down Main Street. It's this big parade, and so somebody made a quest to celebrate that parade, which is really fun. Or there's a fly fishing quest, or the firefly hatching quest, or whatever the things are near you. And then quests with a mission are really, have become more common as well. We're going to do a quest that's all about getting people to recycle or get more exercise or buy local or whatever. So think about what it is you're trying to communicate. And doing that early on will, and doing that with your partners, the team you've assembled, will be great too. And then you need to think about the general location of the quest. Where do you roughly want it to be? Is it going to be um, in this town? Is it going to be along, in this rural or natural area? There are a lot of quests in state parks, national parks, city parks. Is it going to be just in that park, or is it going to go from here to there? So thinking about generally what you're trying to do, or where you're trying to go, and again, that's a little bit iterative because it connects with who your partners are and what they're trying to communicate and all that kind of thing as well. Um, and then think about who you intend to use your quest. So, so for example, I saw one beautiful quest that was written in English and then translated by the Spanish class in the high school into Spanish. Because they were trying to make the quest welcoming for all of the Spanish guests and visitors they had coming into their community through an exchange program. So, um, or you could think about, what age is this for? Is this really designed for 6 and 7 year olds to be able to follow along, or are you trying to make something that whole families will go on and could have some adult orientation, that kind of thing? So just thinking about what's the you know who do you think is going to go on this quest? If it's primarily for schools, you might want to think about what kinds of topics people are going to be wanting to cover. Um so uh sorry, I see that Louisa is a little bit late because she was making a quest, so that's a pretty good excuse. We'll take that. And so thanks, Louisa. um so think about those kinds of things. And then think about what's your time frame. It's going to be important to know how long do we have to work on this. Are we trying to get this done during these 5 days that we're all together, or are we trying to do it in 2 days, or do we have a whole school year and we're going to build up all these skills? So just thinking about in general, how much you need to do and how much time you have to do it in, will help you to move along. Um, and then you need to think about, is there any special stuff? Is it important for this quest to have handicap access? And obviously accessibility is really important for everybody to think about. So you probably do want to do that. And um, that would include things like language translation, or that would include things like making it accessible to people who are deaf or hard of hearing, for example, if that's something that you want to focus on, or visually impaired. So think about the how to make it work for whoever you want it to work for. As I said, you want to think about bike and canoe access. You also want to think about seasonal opportunities. So when we first started making quests in my area, we put them all out and we just thought, oh, we'll just leave them out all winter. We didn't really worry about it. But we were doing them in Tupperware and they all like froze and cracked and leaked. And in the spring, these boxes, we took them out of the snow and they were, these sodden books and all that kind of thing. So now we're way smarter about having a questing season and bringing them in. Usually in our area, in New England, we think of it as Labor Day. Let's see, we take them in on around Labor Day. We put them out on around Earth Day, something like that. But it depends on what it's like where you are. Um, but there are also indoor quests. I think I mentioned this last time, a really cool quest in a library near here where the whole quest can happen any time of year because it happens in the reference section of a library. And you have to look up this fact, look up that fact, look up this fact. They add up to this, you can take the letters and it adds up to a thing that directs you to a book, which is not really a book. It looks like one, but you take it off the shelf and you open it up and it's a box. And the rubber stamp and everything is in there. So there are lots of ways to make it work with all the seasons, depending on where you are. Um, then you need to think about who's gonna do what, and that can sound, kind of like drudgery. Who's gonna do which task. I probably shouldn't have written it that way. It also could be who gets the fun opportunity of doing which really fun job. So, as I said, the fourth grade teacher that I worked with, made these teams, and it was like, ooh, 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 I want to be on the mapping team or the research team or or as I said, I think the box team and the clue writing team. And in his setup, he had these four teams. He had runners going back and forth between each team. Each team had a parent. The research team was sending information to the clue team, but they were trying to get information from the map team so that they could figure out where the final location was going to be so that they could make clues that would lead there. But then we had to think about they had to be connecting with the box team. In this situation, they had decided one of the boys' father was on medical leave and was home and had a great shop. So he decided to build a beautiful birdhouse, and then they had to find a place in public property that they could put up the birdhouse. But then the clue writing team had to be able to collect the letters that spelled out birdhouse so they could get them there. And the map team had to know where, each place they were going to put the clues to lead them to find those letters to get to the birdhouse. So a lot of communication and coordination, and which is just part of the fun and the sort of excitement of the whole thing. But it's important for everybody to know what their job is and how it fits in with each other person's job. Um, and then you need to think about where you're going to get your information. Um, what I've often done is actually plan for a knowledgeable person to come speak to a class and just tell about the theme that they're going to learn about. So, for example, Fellsmere Pond in a town outside of Boston it's the very historic area, and we just brought in someone who knew about it to come. All the kids took notes, and then we compiled the notes into something so they all had the same information. Um, I've gone to state parks and set up a meeting with a state park interpreter who could say, and we could say, we're going to be focusing on moose habitat in this part of the park. Could you, and they'll come and tell lots of information. Or you could, if you're working on primary source research or that kind of thing, you could engage your students in um, learning how to go use some of those resources at the library or digital resources, and actually carrying out interviews, depending on the age of your students and what skills you're trying to help them to get. The research part can be almost one of the biggest parts because it's where you're getting all the content, which you're then going to winnow down into the parts you can really use. Um, so, as I said, after you've done the research, you've got to think about, of all these facts, which ones do we want to include in our quest? And you want to think about the five or so key facts that really convey your point. So if your point is, if you're talking about, say, Harriet Tubman, I mentioned earlier, what are the most important things you want people to leave knowing about Harriet Tubman? What are the, what, which parts of her life are most important for people to know? And then you might throw in a few really fun facts that are just sort of amazing, and to keep people, because you're trying to do storytelling, and you'll keep people engaged. So, for example, a quest that I once wrote, we were trying to have them understand how a road had originally gotten put in through this big notch. but there's this amazing story about this family called the Willies, and there had been a landslide, and they had sort of slid down the mountain, which is where the expression that gave me the Willies came from, because they found their house, but none of them were there. So, kind of a macabre story, but it was, people love that story, and talking about those kinds of facts, and then a few supporting facts. You don't want to load your quest with so much information that people can't hold on to the theme, but you do want to have enough information to make it a good story and the key facts that you're hoping them to emerge from. So there's a bunch of thinking about that, and you might need to go back and get a little more information if what the information you got isn't quite enough. Um, After you've done that, or at some point in this process, you need to think about roughly where your quest is going to go. So, what's going to be the path it's going to take. You have to think about what's safe. You need, if there are road crossings, that kind of thing. You need to think about that how to make sure that it gathers enough clues along the way that you can lead people to the ultimate treasure. You need to think about how are there enough landmarks that make it easy to follow, that kind of thing. So thinking about roughly where it's going to go, and then linked to that obviously is thinking about your starting point and your ending point. So in terms of your starting point, um, you want to make sure that people can get there. So if your quest is going to start, at this certain intersection, or it's going to start at this park, or it's going to start, in front of City Hall, or wherever it's going to start, just make sure there's parking there and or transit. So people can get themselves to the starting point, and there's a place to put their car, or there's a bus, or whatever it is that will make it's walkable, to make sure that there's a place they can actually be and start. Um, and it should, it goes without saying probably, but you probably don't want your quest to go on any private property without permission. So you definitely don't want your quest to go on any private property without permission. So, but sometimes some people are willing to do it. We've had some people who've really generously. I think I mentioned last time, for example, a local hotel that loves the fact that they're involved in the questing program. In fact, they sell all the books and the clues and things in their little gift shop in their hotel. So it can be, people can see it as a nice business point, but think about what's accessible, and then probably even more importantly, um, think about that with your endpoint. So people are going to find this endpoint of the quest, and they're probably going to hang out there a while. Once they find the box, they're going to want to sign in. Maybe they're going to write a little poem. Maybe they're going to put their stamp. They're going to take an impression of the stamp. So there might be a teachable moment. Some quest boxes have in them. I know one that even had a pair of binos attached to it, so and said, "Look around and see, this," or they might have some pamphlets or so. You want it to be a place that people feel comfortable staying for a little minute, and you want the quest box to be a place that um, is that's protected from the seasons, or that it gets pulled out, that in terms of the seasons, and that it isn't going to get vandalized. We had one quest box. We in a group I was working with. We asked these kids, where should we put it? Where should we hide the box? What will be great? And they all knew. They were like, "Oh, I know exactly where we should put it. This is the best place." And it was some little kind of cave-ish thing, sort of in a rock, um, uh, kind of cliffy area in a city park. It wasn't a big cliff, but and and they thought that was the coolest place ever. So we made the quest box, and we had the quest end there, and we put the box there. What we didn't realize is that was the teenage hangout place, the hot spot for the whole town. All the high school students went there. That's why the kids thought it was so cool, because they knew that. And the box just disappeared like 5 times right in a row. And so we were like, this is not a good place. So it needs to be something that is going to be, as I said, not get vandalized, and not, and still be safe. So your students can help you think of that. And you might want to have an adult mind applied to that question as well. Then you want to think about what is going to be your box. I mentioned a birdhouse. The birdhouse that the guy built had like the hole on the front, but it was covered with uh, a piece of black fabric on the back, so no bird would by mistake go in there. And then when you lifted the front, it had the rubber stamp pad and the sign-in book and all that kind of thing. I've seen a really nice one that was in a cemetery that was a flower pot with a fake bottom. Um, I've seen one that was built into a stone wall, with a little bit of extra cement, just a couple extra stones. We needed to get permission to do that, but with a little door, so that worked well. Um, I think I might have mentioned one that I think is really cool is in a small little convenience store, country store kind of place, and you collected all these clues and they spelled out the word sarsaparilla, which isn't kind of like root beer. And so you would go up to the counter of the store and you would say, "Hi, I'm thirsty. May I have a sarsaparilla?" And that was their signal that you had finished the quest, and they would pull the quest box out from under the counter. So it was dry, but it was a nice interaction. In England, in letterboxing, where they started, they actually had mobile quest boxes. So postmen would, and I think they still do, carry them around with them, and you'd have to have solved some kind of riddle to come up to the postman and say these certain words, and then he would pull it out of his post box and you could take your stamp and he'd put it back in. So there are a lot of fun ways to think about making this engaging and connecting with a lot of different people. Oh, I know one that the quest box is up in the fork of a tree and it's attached to a rope on a little pulley, and the rope comes down and goes around this kind of a knob down in the tree, and it has a sign saying, "Please don't touch me unless you've solved the quest." And that one's been nobody's heard that one. So you just hopefully, if it's public enough, people don't do vandalism. Then you need to think about your clues. So, do you want your clues to be poetry or prose? I recommend poetry because I just think that it makes the whole thing a lot more fun. I feel like when it's fun, when people are having fun, then they're paying more attention, they're learning better. So if you can make it feel more exciting, then do it. But prose can be good as well, if depending on your writing style. If you're going to go with poetry, you need to think about what kind of poetry. So I know lots uh, of quests that are made just with haikus, like a whole string of haikus, or you could do limerick or free verse. I particularly love rhymed metered verse. I think that I shall never see a poem as lovely as a tree. I think that the rhyme and the meter just pull you along in a way that kind of sits nicely in your chest and makes you want to be part of it. Um, think about that. Think about the capacity of your writers and what you think that they can do. If they're younger writers, couplets often work really well, just like hickory dickory dock, the mouse ran up the clock, just sort of rhyming two by two by two. If you're working with high school students, or you can do something more complex, like an ABAB rhyme scheme, which I think we demonstrated the last time we were together. So, um, I would definitely write a sample clue as a model so that everybody can understand what you're talking about, and make sure that whoever the writers are. I think you can have a writing team with a lot of people each writing a different section if you've got a model clue, so they know that, to try to hope that everyone's going to get something that kind of fits together. And then you might want a team that goes through afterwards and smooths it all out. Um, I want to, okay, good. Um, so then you want to think about the relationship between your maps and your clues. So it's pretty easy to just say we're going to make a whole treasure map. Every stop is going to be marked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and there's going to be a full clues set, and you follow along the clues, teaching clues, movement clues, the whole thing feeds together. Um, or you could have something that you read through with the clues, and then just have the map just show the final bit. When you're about to get to the end, the map only shows what you need to know to find the box. It's sort of a clue locator map. Um, you could make it more like a treasure map that just focuses on that. mapless, clueless, where there's just a map and you've got to go from that. Some people do clues that are placed in the landscape. So, um, for example, in my town for a while, they had local shopkeepers had agreed to put letters in their shop windows. So there were four, there was like a D, I kept walking by and I forget, and so that the letters spelled out what you needed to know. So as you walked through uh, along through the village, you'd see these letters that added up to a clue. So, and then I talked about floaters, which is the postman example. Spurs are cool. You solve a quest, you get there, you find the box, and in it is a whole set of clues for another box that you can only do if you've solved the first one, because you would never get that set of clues until you got that first one. So another whole cool thing you can do. Um, then you need to then it's actually time to write. You've done all your research, you've figured out all your framework, your start, your end, your rhyme scheme, your all that kind of thing, and it's time to start actually doing it. And this is where you might want to have different teams, working on different things and connecting. You, I often make a big chart that shows each stop along the way. We're going to have, say, these 8 stops, and for each stop, this is the what we're going to teach there. This one's going to be about tides and tidal bore, and this one's going to be about this kind of seabird, and this, so what they're teaching, and then the movement clue, where you have to get from there to where, and then who's doing it, so that, so it's a big chart and everyone can see their job and put it together. And it's good to think of a name for your quest. If you can think of something that's evocative or enticing, that can be a pretty fun, long conversation, or you can just call it the Seward Quest and be done. But I think it is a fun way to kind of get people engaged, and it's marketing, because you want people to get up off their duffs and spend an hour with you walking all around your town. So you need to be able to market it pretty well. And then you need quest testers. And quest testers are people who are going to go out and try it out and see if it works. It's really important that your quest testers don't know anything about it, and are probably not your kids' parents, because you don't want people who are going to go, oh, I think you must mean, oh, I'm sure what you meant was that, they want to solve it and they give the benefit of the doubt. You need someone who's really going to be quite honest and say, I don't understand this at all, or I got really confused at this point, or whatever. What I've often done is have kids follow along behind the quest testers, taking notes on where they got confused so that they can go back in and make little changes. So they're sort of observing the quest testers. Um, I actually used one time, we just happened to have teachers visiting from another country, uh, and uh, and so they were German, and so they actually did the whole quest, but they kind of struggled with the language, and that was helpful too, because it made us realize that you didn't want to use that much slang and that kind of thing. So think about that, and then think about how you might engage your students in making the needed changes. Um, I've seen one way to do that is to put people's comments all the way up around the wall, and have people walk around and look at each other's comments and begin to look for points of commonality and that kind of thing. Um, and then it's time to think about what you're going to put in the box, which is really another fun thing. Colored pencils is something that some people have done, a little magnifying glass. I mean, stuff that you want this to be a teachable moment. People are pretty excited when they finally find the box. And so you want them to have a thing they can do. Maybe it's a list of things they can do in the area, spur quest or whatever. So, some exciting teachable things depending on how safe you think the box is. Um, then you have to think how you're going to let people know about your quest. Some quests are part of a series, and so there's a website with multiple quests, and yours is just one of them, and that's pretty easy. If not, I know one town where they put four quests on a in the newspaper. They had like a full page insert with four quests on it, and that was a nice donation by the newspaper. You could print a whole bunch up and hand them out in stacks. You could put it on your school website. So whatever way you think, you could have your students each give one to one person they know or something like that. So um, and then the best part, the Quest Fest. So this is where it's all done, and you want to have a celebration. And part of this is to invite lots of people to come and try it out. Some of it is just to make sure that you celebrate each step. It's an important part of learning to celebrate and breathe before you go on to the next challenge. So just a really exciting thing. So what I want to do right now is show you a quest, and I the first two sessions of this program, I did quests that were made by adults. I don't know if you remember, but we went on the gnome quest that the iTruck team and I made for teachers to go on when they were up in Nome. I took you on a quest that was made by the staff of Campbell Creek Science Center so that they could that they designed for students. So this time I want to take you on a quest that's made by students. And so and I didn't have any, I didn't have access to any in Alaska. So I'm taking you on a quest in New Hampshire. But it kind of shows what student level questing can be. So this quest was created by a fourth grade class. And the idea was to help students adopt, explore, and interpret the site in their community. And they in this class they were focusing on pieces, patterns, and processes. That was their whole theme that they were focusing on at play in the environment. So the as you'll see, they the in completing this quest, they learned a whole lot of different plants, animals, habitats. That was sort of the theme that they were trying to come across. So let me just see here. I'm wondering if I can get a couple of you to volunteer to read aloud. So I'm thinking, Erica, you're willing to read aloud, and Jane, yep, and Louisa, will you be a reader? Oh, right. So then, and I'll read, and Judy's not going to read because we don't want her to have a car crash. So, and then so we'll do that, and that'll just make this a little bit more interesting to listen to. Quickly, I'll just finish saying, so the way that the teacher set this up is that she gave each student a special spot, and she made them quest field journals, and they made multiple trips out to their special spot to become an expert in this natural area that they were trying to make the quest about. They had to, each time they went, they would learn all about what lived there, the residents there, the different classrooms of this natural place. They would draw, they trade, they went into each other's. They did a whole lot of research and learning, and I believe they had a naturalist come speak to them as well. Um, so then their job was to summarize everything they'd learned through the series of movement and teaching clues. So movement clues got you from one spot in the quest to the next place, and teaching clue was once you got there, learn something about that place, and then you do a movement clue to the next place. So that's how they learned it. And they made this very simple map. Some maps can be elaborate and beautiful. This one's more on the simple side, but it does have a really cool compass rose, I think. And so this was the map that you could go on. One of the things we learned as we made quests was that you don't really want um, the map and or the clues to function so that you don't need the other one. It's nice to have clues that you need the map in order to solve, or have a map that you couldn't solve it just sitting in your on your chair. You'd need both to do it. But we got better at it as we went along. Um, so we're gonna begin. I'll start uh, with the town hall just behind, a large boulder your eyes will find. Jane.
Cross the road towards the sign that reads, Rodney Palmer Environmental Study Area amidst the weeds.
Yeah, that's what I would call stretching for a rhyme. But they are fourth graders, so it's okay. So the Rodney Palmer Environmental Study Area is the area that they were doing their interpretation in. Louisa.
To the right of the sign, a trail you will see. Take 50-ish steps to a leaning oak tree.
Depends on the length of your legs. Erica.
This tree has been growing since it was small. This tree likes swamps, but it might fall.
It does look like it too. Be very quiet, and animals you might spy: rabbit, snake, wood frog, chickadee, and butterfly. Here flies the monarch of orange and black. Birds avoid this poisonous snack. Which, I think is a very cool science fact that they managed to incorporate in poetry. That's no small feat. Jane.
Up to the double trees, pine and oak you should go, but not into the water with your toe.
Little safety message. Louisa.
A snapping turtle lives here all year long. The CREA land is where he belongs. Two pink worm-like wrigglers on its tongue lure prey in to where it's not much fun.
I was wondering if a parent helped with that one, but maybe not. You don't know. Oops, sorry. There you go. Sorry, Erica.
On your left, red oak, white pine, and white birch you'll see. The white birch is the New Hampshire state tree.
So a little social studies fact. Here the land is low and flat. Pine needles make a lovely mat.
The hemlock forest is there if you seek. All it takes is just a little peek.
Sort of an invitation to go exploring. So with each visit, the class species list grew and grew and grew. So they learned and learned more and more. And they did a sorting hat, Harry Potter, a little nod, to let them choose a species to investigate. And they made a class-created field guide. So they made this as a product, this field guide, and told as much as they could about them. And each kid became an expert. So now you go, Louisa.
Okay. All of these trees have many uses, but sugar maples are the ones with the edible juices.
Yep, you're in New Hampshire. Erica.
The others are great for building and timber, and white birch paper makes good tinder.
Jane. Oh, Delia, I'm sorry. Along the path, twin pines mark your way. You wish you could linger there all day. So this is sort of directional. Now it's Jane.
Take 22 steps to the start of a high mushroom trail. Look to your left for the path. You can't fail. Here at the Y, head up the hill. Keep following the trail and observe as you will.
And these steps generally get you there okay. It's a little hard with kid steps and grown-up steps, but Louisa.
You'll see holes in the trees that are cavities, fungus growing too on the trees that are diseased.
Yeah, questionable, but Erica.
Walk by trees sprouting a fungus known as birch polypore by us.
Works. Mushrooms and fungus are decomposers. So are worms and microscopic creatures. I would not call that a rhyme, but it conveys the point. Jane.
Beyond the birches, only a stone wall remains of the farm from days gone by. Upon the spot, a farmer's field used to lie. And in New England, if a farmer doesn't mow, the life cycle continues and a forest will grow.
I mean, that's a very complex ecological principle, I think, that's conveyed in 4 little bits of rhyming verse. I think that's pretty cool. That's one of the main things you need to learn around here. So I skipped.
Ahead, oh, sorry.
You go.
A head, a cradle, and pillow upon the ground to rest your head. Or for a chipmunk, this might make a cozy bed. This mound grew in a spot where a tree once stood. The roots ripped up, decayed, and made a mound of rotting wood.
Now past two logs with hollow centers, home to a mole escaping owl dangers. Daddy mole, watch out. You better protect your little mole sprout.
Continue to the wild field past goldenrod and milkweed, refurbished each year by many dispersed seeds. Jane.
Alive with busy insects on a hot summer day, dragonflies, wasps, and crickets go along their way.
Walk to the mowed grass and feel the sun shining on your face. An open space where children love to race. Survey the land where a mouse eats seeds and fox eats mouse. And up and down the food chain, sun and water matter the most.
Backtrack to the large flat rock, a perfect place to rest and roost.
Scan the woods to your left until you see a web of roots. Break trail to this mysterious place. Walk gently and look down. You may find an orange newt's face.
Creep stealthily as a fox, you've almost found the quest box. When you reach the root statue, explore all the nooks. Then follow the trunk, it points where you should look.
Keep on hunting, your eyes wide and round. Where trunk meets ground is where the box will be found.
Sign into our box, then rehide it once more. You've learned of this place, now it's time to explore.
And that's it. So thank you so much for helping me read. So I just wanted to take a few minutes during our time together before we wrap up to think about ideas you have for ways you might incorporate questing into your teaching. So if you could use the chat, or feel free to speak up if you'd like, but just some thoughts about ways you might use questing to either teach topics you already want or are teaching, or to enliven or invigorate the teaching you're doing, or to connect your classroom more with the community. So any thoughts you have about ways, and actually I know, Louisa, you've made a quest, so any thoughts you have about how it's worked out would be great too. So anyone who's got some thoughts about how to use this tool. I'll open the floor. Erica, you could say it out loud.
Right, I put it in the chat. Yeah, so I would love for my fourth graders to make a quest for younger students at the school, and I definitely want them to create rhyming clues. I'm not sure about the topic yet. Right, we study California history. We're going to be heading into a little bit about the missions and then the California Gold Rush. So maybe something about the Gold Rush. I'm not sure.
I wonder if your students there might be one piece of California history that they're most interested in. It'd be so interesting, I don't know I was just wondering about some kind of sister classroom program with the Gold Rush in Alaska and the Gold Rush in California, and whether, there's any, I don't know what that would look like, but it might be interesting to think about.
That's
Jane,
true. Maybe Louisa can help me find a teacher in a class.
I'm sure you can. Yeah. Jane, you were talking about you were just starting at the beginning before I turned on the camera to tell me about a quest you have in mind.
Yeah, I have a vision for this project to work with the schools that are along the Iditarod Trail, because I work for the Iditarod sled dog race. So, but I've also taught in the bush, and I know it's difficult to, I don't want to ask those schools to do something that isn't really important to them as well. And I feel like finding a contact in the village and talking to them about, because I know they all have cultural standards, and they all have their um, that kind of community that they have to, not that they have to, but they have as part of their curriculum. So anyway, I'm wondering if I could coach them, or we could do one together on their community, which would be good for them, but also then request that I could share those with teachers outside, to learn about the schools on the Iditarod.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that idea. Louisa, I don't know if that connects with any of the work you guys are doing through the Science Center, but that just feels so rich, I think.
Yeah, I was just thinking if you and maybe this is what you were describing, but if I was thinking it would be cool for the kids if they were if they made something, a few clues or whatever about their about their village and their culture and their history and their whatever, and then you had a whole bunch of schools do the same thing in communities along the trail, that it would be kind of, then they could all take a virtual quest up the trail going like, that would be kind of fun.
That'd be cool. And you could have photos, from each place to kind of see what it looked like too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you could do a Google tour,
Yeah.
embed them in a Google special Google map, like a story map or something.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that sounds great. I really want part of it to be, traditional, where there's people out and about their community. I want them to build something, and I want their community to use it. I think it would be fun to see their families doing it or whatever. But I love that kind of hands-on, out there in the real. But part of it would have to be digital for me to share it with other people. So
Yeah, but I do agree. I mean, it's nice to think about things that families can go out and do together, encourages them to get out walking and all that kind of thing. And then, I guess, they're both great because then there's that thought of, wow, you've got this 1,200-mile long resource, and how do you connect people to different parts of it? But so it's almost, you almost can do both, having specific walkable, paper copy
mhm.
uh, quests at different spots along the way, and having that. I think I showed you the last time we talked, a quest that someone made that works anywhere in Alaska. It's a book, but it's just sort of
Oh, right,
you
right,
can
yes.
find anywhere in Alaska. A teacher, do you remember that, Louis said? Yeah. Um, and
Yeah.
I sort of started to say, but you can, whether you're trying to teach rhyming, map making, the teacher that I talked about, who spent the whole year building up toward questing, he did the best map making work with his fourth graders. He had them they would start out by taking an object, like I think it was a sneaker, and they draw it from the side, and then they draw it from an oblique angle view, and then they draw it from the top, and then so they would begin to get that whole sense of perspective and mapping. And then he took they had a basin of like a tub, a plastic tub, and they made mountain ranges and stuff in it with clay, and put a piece of plexi on top. And then you would lift away the plexi and pour in a cup of water, then another cup of water, and each time you poured in water on the plexi, you would trace what the water had come up to. And that's how you could get the idea of contour lines. That you'd see that on the steep valleys, they would be going up, and you'd, begin to understand. So they ultimately had created a contour map of the mountain range they'd made with clay and stuff like that. So there was just, using it to go really into a lot of depth in each area was pretty cool. Any other thoughts about any of these? Are these topics that you teach? Like Erica, how do you do research, history research with your kids? What are the ways they get their information?
I mean, so far this year, we've had just some little mini research projects, and we mostly use the internet. And we talk about, you can't list Google as your source. That's what they want to do. Oh, I found it on Google.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't really, it took you to a place. And we tried to talk about, okay, well, which places can we trust? What is this organization? Where did you find this information? But a lot of it so far has been on the internet, and just
Yeah.
kind of mini short research projects where they make a few slides and present their information.
I mean, if one of the goals is to connect, to strengthen ties between communities and schools, getting knowledgeable elders or others into the community to give a little talk can be great, and it can be great for note taking skills as well. So I think I'm just about done. I realize I'm at the top of the hour, so I want it to be done by now. So we've talked about this subjects, and uh, I'm happy to stay on and do questions. I, Jane, I'm thrilled that you just bought this book. Jane's, Jane, that's really fun. And Lisa already has one, so you can get it for $1.99 or something on Amazon if you want. So um, if you have any questions at all, feel free to reach me. We've got a bunch of other webinars coming up on March 1st. There's an iTrek educator resource guide. We'll be learning about that. And then we've got a couple that are going to be focusing on outdoor classrooms. One March 24th in Wolverine Park, April 5th for Sand Lake Park or Sand Lake School, sort of behind the school. On March 31st, we're doing nature art again, back by popular demand. And then we'll be doing Science Along the Trail, Louisa, I think on the 21st. And I want to invite you to come to the program that we're going to be doing um, with Appalachian Trail teachers. So we'll give more information about that. But I think it's going to be really a nice opportunity to have them come as well. That'll be on April 26th, sort of a teacher lounge sharing with them. So
I'm
uh,
sorry, Delia, you said something was on the 21st. Is that March 21st or April 21st?
April 21st.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. And then on April 26th, we'll do the teacher lounge, which is just an hour, bring a cup of tea and chat with teachers from the Appalachian Trail. Get to know, it's a nice way. They're trying to do some of the same challenges you are. So thank you so much for coming. I'm gonna turn off the recording, but feel free to stay a minute longer if you have any questions. Um, Thanks.